When I first came to my church in Connecticut back in the mid-90s, we were wrestling with just these questions. I found a church back in Connecticut that was like most churches where 20% of the people were doing 80% of the work. And I found a church, like many churches, where the work that the 20% they were doing was largely just busy church work. It wasn't the work that Jesus had commissioned the church to do. There's lots and lots of meetings and lots of committees and lots of votes, but that real work was missing. Disciples were not being made. No evangelism was going on. We weren't serving the community, and the church wasn't growing, but they sure were busy. But Jesus didn't send out the 12 two by two to go and vote on which toys they should have in the nursery, or which hymnal to buy, or who's going to fix that hole in the wall. And don't you think it's time that we tell our youth groups that they can't have the gym? Jesus sent the 12 out two by two to share the gospel with people, to call people to repent and return to God, to be salt and light, to win the lost, to grow the kingdom. So early on in my experience with our church leadership team, we started asking these questions. We got before God and we say, okay, how can we help our people to start to see ministry first? How can we share with them that Jesus wants them to reach, teach, and unleash, not vote, shop, and set up chairs? And how can we show them the proper relationship between meetings and ministry? Meetings are important. They support ministry, but they're not all important. Yeah, you got to keep your nursery up to date. You got to fix the holes in your wall. You don't want a new person coming to your church and not feeling safe when they bring their child to your nursery. But we set up the nursery to fulfill the mission, to do the ministry. Jesus did not say, go and make potlucks for all nations. He said, go and make disciples. And then one more set of questions we asked. We said, well, how can we make sure that our people are not burning out? How can we help them find the balance? How can we make sure that they're not only feeding, but they're getting fed? And we also asked the question, how can we bump up that 20% that are doing most of the work? How can we bump up that percentage? Maybe take it to 30% or 40% or 50%. Wouldn't that be great to have half of your church actively involved? Well, after a lot of prayer and study, and one of the stories we looked at was the feeding of the 5,000, I wrote out a chart to summarize what we were learning, and we called it the full Christian inventory, or the full member inventory, because we ended up teaching this in our discipleship classes and new membership classes. In fact, this concept, the full member concept, didn't know it at the time, but it would become one of the most useful, instructional, and powerful discipleship resources and ideas that we'd ever had. And it stayed with us the rest of my ministry in Connecticut, which lasted 20 years. So I knew when I came to Bridgeway a year ago, I knew at some point I wanted to share this with you and see if it resonated with your heart as well. If you've taken our new membership class, our MEMSEM, this might ring a bell for you. But this is the Sunday where we're formally introducing it, formally bringing it before you and saying, what do you think, Bridgeway? So, you have your teaching note sheet. I want you to take out now this other resource I asked you to grab that says, am I a full member? And let's go through this, and if we have those slides available, we can put the first one up, a couple paragraphs that explains what this is about. It says, at Bridgeway, we believe that God has equipped every Christian with spiritual gifts that are to be used for the strengthening of His church and the building of His kingdom. If I do not allow my gifts to be used, the work of the church will suffer, and I will too. At the same time, there must be a balance to my service. Church-a-pewism, I don't know if that's a word, but we made it one, doing too little, and church-a-holism, doing too much, are to be avoided. The full member concept is designed to help you find direction and balance in your church involvement. The scoring system will help you get an idea of where you're at in the full member scale. And just quickly go to the next slide, and you'll see, and we'll come back to this in a moment. We actually developed a scoring system to help people identify, am I a full member or not? Now, we'll come back to that in a minute. The word full is, of course, an acronym, which represents 3 areas of commitment or ministry that we ask all of our members to be a part of. The letter F stands for feeding ministry. Now, this is a place of ministry where you are serving directly, giving directly to feed people spiritually, to get them near to Christ and growing in their faith. It's what we call serving on the front lines. And as you'll see here, if you're looking at the resource or looking what's on the screen, examples of this include any of our teaching ministries. If you lead or host a life group, that's this category. When you share on the worship team, helping in Bridge Kids, you're part of our Sunday Strong team, you're welcoming people, you're in the Connect Center, you're welcoming the visitors the Lord sends to us. These are the ministries that connect us most directly to the Great Commission. These are the ministries that put us in the sweet spot of making disciples. Now, this list is rather limited because it represents us. We're a small church yet. In my church in Connecticut, we had a lot of other ministries that over time developed. We had a coffee house, and we had a homeless ministry, and numerous other things. And in time, God will raise up new things here. But this reflects Bridgeway right now. You'll notice a demarcation in the scoring system. The way it's laid out, the way we did it in Connecticut, was that if you did something full-time, i.e. you did it basically weekly, it was your regular ministry, you got 5 points for that. If it was a less frequent thing you did, more occasional, you got 2 points for that. And you'll see examples of that here. Let's go on to the letter U. This stands for undergirding ministry. And here's where we place most of our administrative work. It's a place of ministry that's absolutely vital. Administration is absolutely critical because it supports what's going on in the front lines. It enables the feeding ministries to be as fruitful as they can be. These are ministries that are more behind the scenes, though. And so our leadership team and our future elder team would be in this category. For our leaders are in the back room, and they're praying, and they're planning, and they're discussing vision and strategy, and they're assessing church health. What they're doing undergirds the church. It's the skeletal system of the church, and you know how important a skeleton is. What would you do right now if you didn't have your skeleton? It wouldn't be pretty, I'll tell you that. Our finance team is an example of an undergirding ministry, and we have a newer digital media team, and you see their fingerprints each and every week on our website, in Church Center. You see them in social media. It's awesome what they're doing. Behind the scenes, quiet, undergirding, supporting. It's awesome. Now again, 5 points are assigned if this is a primary ministry for you. 2 points if it's a little less frequent. If you cook a meal for our Bridge Helps. How many of you have ever cooked a meal or helped someone move? Those are the two big focuses. Raise your hand. Just about everyone in here. You get 2 points for that. How's that? Woo-hoo! If you're on the Bridge Helps team, meaning you're meeting monthly, you're praying regularly for the church, you're mobilizing the church for caregiving, you get 5 points. And right now, only Lisa Hess gets 5 points, because she is the Bridge Helps team. Lisa, you're out there somewhere. She wears a big S on her shirt and a cape behind her. Next year, one of our primary ministry objectives for 2021 is going to be to form an actual team around Lisa. And in the Bible, that team is called a diaconate, deacons and deaconesses. And we're gonna form that. Made of people whom God has gifted with the gift of mercy and compassion. They love to help others in need. It just makes them come alive. We want to create a team of people like that because as the church grows, caregiving needs are going to grow. There'll be hospital visits that need to be made. Don Hess does a lot of that right now as a chaplain in our community. Grief counseling will need to be offered. Recovery work. Marriage counseling, mentoring. Don has, speaking of Don, he has prepared an entire curriculum of training for just this type of ministry, which has been largely untapped to date because we haven't developed a full diaconate yet. But even in saying this right now, those of you watching, some of you are feeling the Spirit of God tap you on the shoulder. You're starting to have your heart come to life a little bit. You're saying, oh, that sounds like me. That sounds interesting. That's part of undergirding the church. Double L, next slide, stands for living and learning. Here's the place where you make sure you're getting fed. You're not only giving out, but you're receiving. It sets the balance. You're not only expending energy, but you're getting recharged. It's what we call staying strong on the front lines. So for us at Bridgeway, the primary way to do this, the primary way to get your 5 points is what, do you think? Be a part of a life group, which again, we're going to formally launch in a couple weeks. And some of you are meeting right now, but we're getting ready for that. Maybe you're younger and you're saying, where do I get my 5 points? Hey, if you're in junior or senior high, you get 5 points to go into your youth group. Do you know that? Chelsea and Ryan get 5 points for leading it. You get 5 points for doing it. And if you're really nice to them and support them and encourage them and listen to them, we'll even give you 2 bonus points. How about that? So, feeding, getting fed. And there's plenty of occasional ways to get fed as well. The men's monthly fellowship, women have occasional events. So that's what full member stands for. Now here's how we utilize this concept. It's kind of a covenant that we'll make with each other when it comes to this full member idea. What we say to everybody who joins this church, who says, you know what, I love Bridgeway, I want to be a part of this family. What we're going to encourage people to do is to find one way in each category to be involved. We're going to say to people, we ask you, and let's just come right out and say it, we expect you. Find an area where you're supporting a feeding ministry. Find an area where you're undergirding somewhere. And make sure you're getting fed. Find one area where you're in a living and learning setting and a living and learning group. And that's how you become a full member. And then there's the scoring system. Now this scoring system that you'll see, and let's show that slide. This is for Connecticut. I'm not sure if this will fit our context yet. But from years and years of experience, I can say that this scoring system has almost a scientific precision to it. You notice a full member level is around 23 to 30. And for our church back then, if you hit that sweet spot in there, you felt good. You felt balanced. You felt like you were contributing to the body of Christ, and yet it wasn't burning you out. There was a sense of euphoria even about what you were doing. But then there were people who were doing too much. They were wearing too many hats. And as you can see on the scoring system, we have a way to quantify that. There are people who need oxygen. There are even people in a church with 17 hats. They need to be put on a suicide watch. And what the full member concept gave us the ability to do was to go up to these people and to let go of some things. We would even say to people, you have to let some things go. You have to stop doing some of these things. We'd say to people, you shouldn't be in church 3 or 4 nights a week. You need to be home with your family. Don't turn your kids against church, against Jesus, because they've stolen mom or dad away from church all the time. Don't do that. You need to be out playing softball once a week, making some non-Christian friends, make some connections with the community. And we would compel people to choose what they needed to do. And we also found this to be a motivational resource for the 80%ers. Who felt like, sometimes they didn't even have a pulse. Are you even alive? And this was a way to help encourage them to discover their gifts and serve the Lord with it.